Hello and welcome to Festival of Pineapples, the live judging of the Pineapples Awards for Place. This is an awards program that seeks to recognize built environment projects and initiatives that make a positive social impact on the wider place and its people. And welcome to this category. This is the judging of infrastructure. My name is Christine Murray, co-founder of the Pineapples and founding editor-in-chief of The Developer and director of the Festival of Place. And I'm so pleased to be your chair for this category. This pineapple seeks to recognize projects that enhance connectivity, make a positive social and environmental impact, and contribute positively to people's lives and to the wider place. So we have some great finalists to share with you. A reminder of the rules. Each presenter has 10 minutes to pitch to the judges, who then have 10 minutes to ask questions. After hearing all the presentations, the judges will deliberate in private to decide the winner. And those winners will be announced on the 22nd of April at a party at Trinity Buoy Wharf in London, and tickets to the party are on sale now at thepineapples.co.uk. A selection of finalists are also invited to present their project on stage at the Festival of Place on the 10th of June, and that's not just the winners. We just pick a cross-selection, a chair's selection of projects that we loved hearing about to put them on stage in front of our live audience, and the passes to the festival are on sale now. Save the date, 10th of June. So please feel free to use the emoji button below to cheer on our presenters today and share your comments in the chat, but the judges are the only ones asking the questions at the Pineapples. If you want to view the presentation slides at a larger scale, top tip, there is a maximize button. If you mouse over me right now, there is a maximize button that will pop out the window and make those slides into full screen mode. So it's time to meet our judges for this category. The judges are so important to the Pineapples, and we thank them so much for their time and contribution. Today we have with us Claire Heffer-Davies, who is Senior Development Manager at the Crown Estate. Claire leads the delivery of public realm developments across the London estate, including the interim Regent Street Public Realm project and the ongoing design development of the permanent Regent Street, Haymarket and Piccadilly Circus Public Realm scheme in partnership with Westminster City Council. With a 10-year background as a chartered town planner, Claire takes a strategic master plan approach to the curation of thriving places for people. We also are pleased to welcome Tom Beardmore, who is Social Value and Community Engagement Director at Mount Anvil. Tom is responsible for leading Mount Anvil's social value and community engagement work across Mount Anvil's estate regeneration projects in central London. He works directly with JV partners, community and political stakeholders, and most importantly, residents. At the heart of this work is Tom's passion for creating innovative public-private third sector partnerships and funding models that unlock resources, delivering more sustainable impact in London communities over the long term. And finally, we have with us Devon Efte, who is head of area regeneration at the London Borough of Hounslow. Devon led major regeneration programs in the Midlands before joining Hounslow, working with public and private partners to turn underperforming sites into places people want to spend time in and not just pass through. Devon is particularly interested in design quality, public value, and proving that the public sector can lead with purpose, pace, and imagination. He brings energy, curiosity, and high standards and always pushes for quality, challenging convention to create places people are proud to call home. So thanks too much to these three brilliant judges. And we've got some interesting projects to show to them today. So first up is Tulip Cycle Wands at Sussex Gardens, City of Westminster for Westminster City Council with Pitman Tozer architects Pip Squeak and FM Conway. And this project is presented by Luke Tozer, who is director, and Nang Lo, who is architectural assistant, both from Pitman Tozer Architects. So welcome both.
Great. Thanks, Christine. Thank you all.
I love that you've got some tulips in the window there for us to share as well. Amazing. Okay, over to you.
Great. Well, thank you all. I'm Luke, as Christine said, Director of Pitman Tozer Architects, and my colleague Nang. And today we're going to be talking about how we've developed tulip cycle wands to make our streets safer, greener, and more joyful. Our starting point was simple, was wanting to make cycling safer in the UK. On average, nearly 2 cyclists are killed each week, with 74 more seriously injured. And most of these accidents happen on congested urban roads where cyclists share space with vehicles. Painted cycle lanes offer little protection, and these were photographed in Westminster before the tulips were installed. Without physical protection, you can see how vehicles encroach on the cycle space, endangering cyclists. On the other hand, conventional cycling infrastructure is often dull and detracts from the urban streetscape. And when poorly maintained, which is usually the case, they even pose safety risks to the cyclist, worsening the very problem we're trying to solve. So this made us think, surely we can do better than these bollards. The tulips were initially a proposal conceived for the London Festival of Architecture competition, and our entry, Blooming London, was selected as one of the winners. The proposal reimagined cycling infrastructure for a post-pandemic city where during COVID, many people had discovered the joy of cycling. We were inspired by the poppies at the Tower of London and the sunflower fields of the Tour de France. We wanted to create an experience, an urban experience, but reminiscent of cycling through a field of flowers. So the tulips are safer, they protect cyclists from vehicles. They're sustainable, being made with recycled materials, and are playful, colourful, and surprising in the streetscape. Ultimately, our tulip cycle lanes are designed to improve the cycling experience whilst also revitalising the streetscape for everyone. The tulip heads are made with locally recycled plastic. On the left is plastic waste from Westminster, collected by and processed by Veolia. Combined with the pigment on the right, these are then blow molded and cut to produce our tulip heads. This process creates offcuts, the little fuchsias, which you can see in the middle, which we've been looking into recycling and repurposing into artwork, such as this mobile that adorns our studio, kindly made for us by Finn Harper. He accepts other commissions too. As for how they work, the tulips are flexible, allowing them to bounce back upon impact, ensuring that they aren't a hazard for cyclists. The tulip stem and base are also retroreflective, enhancing visibility at night. So, follow Westminster's approval of their council in 2023, we carried out 2 years of collaborative prototyping and on-road testing to meet Westminster's strict safety requirements. This was one of the early prototypes being run over by a 30-ton truck, where the tulip head was cut out of a plant bottle. Subsequent prototypes focused on refining the design of the head and the stem and the base to improve performance and usability. And the base was modified to function bidirectionally so that it couldn't be installed by a contractor the wrong way round. The head was also developed following feedback to prevent beer cans being able to be inserted into it, and drainage holes were introduced to allow both water and cigarette butts to drain out. We also engaged in community activity by conducting a workshop with Hampton Gurney School, where we introduced students to the idea that cycling infrastructure can be both protective and joyful. They were invited by us to decorate tulip heads in a workshop to help foster a sense of ownership of the local cycle lane and to encourage them and their families to use it as part of their daily commute. So we were lucky enough also to create and name our very first Tulip Cycle Wand ambassador, Teo, who cycles daily with his mum and has become a visible and popular advocate amongst his peers. His mother later shared that Teo described the tulips as his favourite birthday present, as they were installed, luckily, on his 10th birthday, showing how a meaningful and well-designed infrastructure can really shape how the youth feel about their streets. The tulips were then installed along Sussex Gardens and unveiled by the Lord Mayor of Westminster, Paul de Moldenberg, in May of last year. And through their presence and form, the tulips weave softness, colour and joy into the urban fabric, redefining what street infrastructure can be. I'm going to hand over now to Nang.
Thank you, Luke. So firstly, to better understand the environmental impact of the tulips, we conducted a preliminary cradle-to-gate embodied carbon assessment following ISO 14040 and 14044 life cycle assessment principles. Our early estimates indicate that each tulip generates approximately 11 kilograms of carbon dioxide equivalent per unit. And for comparison, a TMP FlexPost is about 13 kg CO2e. A concrete cycle segregation unit is about 21 kilograms CO2e, and a concrete bollard is about 82 kilograms CO2e. Our calculation is quite conservative as it does not yet account for the 24% recycled rubber content that's incorporated in the tulips. And since the initial assessment, we've also reduced the amount of steel used in the base by about a third, lowering its contribution to overall carbon. Even under these cautious assumptions, the tulips demonstrate a promising lower embodied carbon profile than conventional cycling infrastructure. And ongoing opportunities for further reduction also include increasing the use of recycled content, as well as further optimizing the base to reduce material usage. As part of our collaboration with Westminster, a survey was commissioned to understand the social impact of our intervention. And to our delight, we've received positive feedback, with 84% of cyclists feeling safer, 70% of respondents liking the design, and 74% agreeing that the tulips enhance the streetscape. We've also included some of our favorite quotes, with people saying they serve a safety function but also just really cheer up the road. Let's see more of them throughout Westminster and beyond. And my personal favorite, honestly, they are absolutely hideous. So moving, as for scalability, we've had current trials with Westminster and Camden, as well as Raleigh in North Carolina, USA, who are just about to receive their tulips. We've also got a lot of international inquiries from countries across the world, which has been really exciting. So these trials are really important for us to understand where the tulips fall short. And as you can see, many of these tulips have gotten pretty damaged. And these trials are important for us to refine not just the design, but also to understand the kind of context that the tulips would work best in. So for example, learning where would be best to place the tulips. And in response to this, we've also developed a super tulip, which is meant to be placed at the starts and ends of runs to protect the rest of the tulips from being damaged. So what's next for us? We intend to continue improving safety and promoting active travel and making it an attractive as well as accessible option for everyone. So thank you everyone for your attention, and we look forward to hearing your questions.
Beautifully run to time. Thank you very much for your presentation. And I love the super tulip. Did not see that word appearing today. So here come our judges. I'm sure they have some questions for you about this cheery bit of infrastructure. Devin, do you want to go first? Oh, actually, I don't have your volume, which is a bit curious. Maybe I can't see anything wrong with it. It must be to check your audio settings for your microphone. But in the meantime, I'm just going to pop to Claire while we troubleshoot you. You might want to watch the speaker chat. Claire.
Thanks, Christine, and hi there, Luke and Nang. It's a beautiful and very joyful project, which is lovely to see. And it was great to see, Nang, that you touched on the sort of larger scalability of the project elsewhere. I just wanted to hear a little bit more about how easy it is to roll out the design in other places and how easy they are to maintain and replace the damaged tulips. So, keeping a stock of them, how easy is it to make sure there aren't any gaps, thinking more longer term?
Yeah, Nang, I'll take this one if that's okay. Thanks, Claire. Well, yeah, we've been, as Nang pointed out, learning from the first 9 months that they've been installed in Westminster. And when you put anything on the street, you get all sorts of things happening, crashes, obviously trucks, buses, deliveries, all sorts of things going on, which have meant that a number of them have been damaged and replaced. And it's helped us refine the design. So first part of improving the resilience has been making the heads more flexible so that they don't crack, which was to do with the composition of plastic in the head, so they're a bit more spongy to feel. Taking the base of the tulip where it springs back is essentially a sort of bungee, and making that stiffer so that they don't hit the ground so easily, and then making the sort of base connection more resilient. There have been a number that have been replaced by Westminster, and there's a sort of ongoing programme. Thankfully, it's a 2-year trial, so they're becoming more resilient each time. Hence the super tulip, as you saw. And we, as part of the programme, we monitor on a weekly basis any missing or damaged ones, and they get reported as part of the service contracts at FM Conway, who are most of London's, or many of London local authorities' service provider. They kindly swap in replacements. So we have an ongoing programme of supplying them with additional ones as and when they need them.
Thank you.
We're gonna try Devon's microphone again and see if we've managed to fix that.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, yeah. Wonderful,
yeah.
Fantastic.
Sarah, thanks both. That was really good, and a really good, joyful way to breathe life into what is a fairly uninspiring infrastructure. You mentioned about trying to use it as a way of sort of encouraging the modal shift and increasing active travel. So obviously there was a cycle lane already along Sussex Gardens. Have you got any data on that modal shift and whether you've seen an increase in cycling volume since you've put the tulips in?
Not yet is the short answer, other than anecdotal. At the moment, NRP are doing a survey. They did one before the cycle lane, before the tulips on the cycle lane, and they're going to complete one after the first year. I mean, I go on it regularly because it's between the studio and home, and certainly in terms of children cycling along it to school is very common, and I don't remember seeing them before, but we haven't got any hard data yet to support that. But yeah, I mean, I encourage anyone listening to either cycle down Goods Way, where the second one's been installed recently in King's Cross, or Sussex Gardens in Paddington.
Thank you.
Having spent some years cycling down Goods Way, I would think that was a welcome bit of color on that stretch of the city, I would think. Tom, would you like to bring in a question?
Yeah, hi guys.
Hi, Tom.
Good to hear from you, Luke. Hi, Lang. Thank you for taking us through that. Definitely joy is the theme, isn't it? It's such a joyful case study, and you've set the bar pretty high for Tao's 20th birthday, if you were kind enough to deliver this project for his 10th birthday. Similar question to Devon's, and I expect I can guess the answer, but I love the 84% stat, people feeling safer. Was intrigued if you've any evidence or if you've seen anything that points to people who weren't previously cycling taking it up, especially in London, because of this new safer route.
Well, again, other than anecdotal, it's quite hard to get that sort of real data. I mean, I've talked to people as they stop at the traffic lights and ask them where they're from and whether they're new cyclists or not. But I mean, mostly, I guess, the intention of the tulips is to try and make cycling both more joyful and more accessible more broadly, so that it becomes a sort of everyday activity, as you see in other cities where there's been sort of full modal shift. And I guess we had a studio visit to Copenhagen in October, and in some ways cities like that are beyond the need for tulips, but this is a way of introducing on existing streets, both trying to create a culture where it's more acceptable and friendly for people to cycle. So hopefully it's not just for the cyclists, it's for car drivers as well to enjoy it. And I guess there's a bit of evidence of that in that I was there a few days ago looking at one that had been knocked over and was picking it up, and someone in a big souped up SUV who was in his probably, I don't know, 30s ran down the window and sort of aggressively said, "Oi, what are you doing?" And I said, "Oh, I'm just taking them back to the studio because this is damaged." And he then said, "Oh, great, good job." And it went from being an aggressive sort of abuse of a vehicle driver to a sort of pedestrian cyclist, to a friendly incident, and that was brought about by the tulips.
He was afraid you were stealing it, clearly.
Yeah, exactly, which was nice. In the original competition entry, I wrote a poem to the White Van Man, which was where a white van pulls up at the traffic lights, winds down his windows and says to the cyclist, "Normally I hate cyclists and I hate cycle lanes, but even I'll admit that these are beautiful." And whilst I haven't managed to meet that white van person, yet that's what we're aspiring to.
Well, of course, I would have preferred pineapples, but in the absence of pineapples, I'm very happy with tulips.
Well,
I think that
sort
brings.
of missed Claire's one part of Claire's thing, which is we have also looked and been asked to look at other heads rather than just tulips. So obviously tulips resonate a bit with cycling in the Netherlands, but we have been asked in Wales to look at daffodils, in Scotland to look at thistles, and I guess one of the other elements is that they can be personalized to flowers that resonate with local areas. So, different places.
So golden pineapples are not ruled out yet. Not
exactly.
That's good to hear. Well, that just leaves me to thank you for your presentation and judges for your questions. We are now going to cycle and journey away to another walking and cycling improvement scheme, and we are now going to Bradford City Centre. For the Bradford City Centre Walking and Cycling Improvement, Bradford for West Yorkshire Combined Authority and the City of Bradford Metropolitan District Council, with Balfour Beatty, Sweeco, and Gavin Jones. And this is going to be presented by Sarah Ali, who's landscape architect and team leader, landscape design and conservation at City of Bradford Metropolitan District Council, and Darren Badrock, who is principal engineer and project managing officer for Bradford Council. So welcome both.
Thank you, and good afternoon. So today, Darren and I are going to share how infrastructure has helped reshape Bradford, not just physically, but socially, environmentally, and economically. Our Transformation Cities programme demonstrates how transport funding can become the catalyst for wider city transformation. We set out to rebalance a 19th century city for a 21st century future, proving that infrastructure can do more than move people. It can transform how a city feels, how it functions, and how it thrives. Bradford grew rapidly during the Industrial Revolution, a powerhouse of wool industry, but post-war highway planning cut roads through its historic core. This created severance, poor air quality, and streets dominated by vehicles rather than people. Infrastructure was no longer supporting civic life, it was limiting it. And Bradford also faces significant public health inequalities with low physical activity and high deprivation. But incremental change would not address these systematic challenges. We needed infrastructure that could deliver environmental improvements, social inclusion, economic recovery, and civic pride seamlessly. But we delivered it during COVID recovery. Global supply disruption and extreme inflation, maintaining both quality and ambition.
And the Transforming Cities Fund gave us the opportunity to rethink the whole system within Bradford. And we used the investment from it for highways, not just as a tool for traffic management, but as a tool for placemaking as well. So an in-house team worked as an intelligent client along with West Yorkshire Combined Authority, and we appointed through the SCAPE framework Balfour Beatty, who were our main build partner, and they assembled a multidisciplinary team of Sweeco and Gavin Jones to help us out. And basically, we've created a genuinely collaborative partnership that's been mission-led with a very strong ideal from the start to do something slightly different, but also to enhance the city centre considerably. So we did an awful lot of public consultation, which shaped not only the design, but the ambition of the scheme. and moved the central area away from being car dominated to walking, cycling and public transport. And the goals were really clear here. We wanted to remodel junctions on the outside of the city centre to make provision for increased traffic movements, and then improve and rationalise bus infrastructure around the city centre and reclaim the urban core for people that were coming into town.
So the scale of the delivery was quite significant. We closed 1.6 kilometres of roads to traffic, increasing pedestrian space by about 80%. We delivered 2.1 kilometres of new cycle routes and new bus lanes and hubs, which improved connectivity. We created just over 31,000 square metres of new and improved public realm, planted 178 new trees and created over 13,000 square metres of new green space. We achieved 24% biodiversity net gain on site and generated 9.8 million in social value and diverted 98% of construction waste from landfill. And critically, the scheme was delivered on time and on budget. This infrastructure operating at this scale and delivering measurable outputs. But the numbers only tell part of that story. Footfall has increased, streets feel safer, air quality has really improved, spaces are being used by families, older residents, students, workers. Infrastructure here has not just improved movement, it's improved experience. We have rewired how the city functions.
And key to all of that, the delivery timeline aligned with Bradford 2025 and the UK City of Culture, which came up as a challenge partway through the design of the scheme and actually had to accelerate our timelines. But the City of Culture nomination and subsequent award raised expectations and made the ambition even more stronger to do something different, which mattered hugely to both the people involved in the project, but also to the local community. And we haven't just built transport routes. We've reshaped the gateway into the city, improving arrival experiences for people and created space for public art and civic activity. And essentially, we were the window dressers for the City of Culture. We prepared the city to host the nation. That's how we refer to it. We took a lot of redundant car infrastructure out of the system and replaced it with people-focused public space, which has been extremely well received. And the infrastructure revamp has become the foundation for cultural confidence, investment, and national visibility. As Sarah just said, the footfall's gone up. We are getting a huge amount of national interest in the scheme.
And traditionally, highway investment prioritizes vehicle movement, but we used it to prioritize human experience and urban quality investment. Streets once dominated by traffic are now places where people sit, linger, they meet each other, they play, and they celebrate and really feel like ownership. And this investment supports local businesses, it improves safety and strengthens that civic identity. And our ambition was really simple: to achieve the widest possible benefits from infrastructure funding. Not just transport outcomes, but social, environmental, economic, and really bring joy to the people who live in Bradford.
And the project has been about enabling modal shift. So we removed and rationalised bus stops in the city centre, but we then created bus corridors around the central area, creating new bus hubs to improve reliability of public transport and accessibility for people. We've improved things for cyclists. They no longer share space with heavy traffic. There are clear, legible and protected routes through the centre. And we've linked up National Cycle Route 66 with 2 West Yorkshire priority cycle routes through the works. And we are currently in the throes of building the 3rd leg of that as a separate scheme that complements the city centre one. Where the movement modes have intersected, we've introduced enhanced crossing to improve safety for both pedestrians, cyclists, and public transport users, and even car drivers in some locations. And at every opportunity where we could, we replaced redundant hardscaping with green infrastructure, and that was seen as a key element within the works to try and improve the ambience of the city centre and make things better. So now the network connects, and the scheme itself hasn't been done in isolation. There's an awful lot of regeneration going on in Bradford at the present moment in time. We have linked in with wider regional active travel routes, public transport systems, new developments within the city. And essentially, I think the message that we're putting out is that we didn't build fragments or do this on a piecemeal basis. We have built a functioning system and fundamentally changed Bradford city centre for the good going forward in terms of economic benefits and sustainable urban mobility.
But at the heart of the scheme is Norfolk Gardens, a new urban park built where there was a 5-lane road, which we removed. Here, grey has been replaced with blue-green infrastructure. Street trees reduce urban heat and improve air quality. We've got rain gardens that manage stormwater naturally, and meadows and herbaceous planting, which supports biodiversity. It's now a place where children learn to ride bikes and kick a football, where long buried watercourses are interpreted in the landscape, and the colour of the plants remind us of the dying of the wool. These interventions improve climate resilience while enhance daily life. Environmental performance was embedded from the outset and not added later. And this really demonstrates that even within the constraints of city centre conditions, infrastructure can lead the transition to a greener urban environment.
And obviously the true test of infrastructure is whether people use it, and they do. The space is animated already. People took to it within days of it being opened. Not because we programmed that animation, but because people have chosen to come into it. And over the summer last year, we saw people bringing picnics in. We've seen people playing cricket, playing volleyball on there in the middle of a city, which is a fundamental change. Footfall has increased, cycling levels are rising. The air quality in the central area has improved considerably. In fact, it's accelerated Bradford's clean air targets quite considerably. And our research partner, Born in Bradford, is tracking long-term public health outcomes linked directly to the investment that we've put in here. So this infrastructure is changing behaviour and improving lives.
Yeah, and the project's already has unlocked further funding. We secured another £1 million through Nature Towns and Cities funding to expand the green infrastructure across the district, and also £2 million for the Heritage Action Zone to continue regenerating the historic areas. And this scheme influence extends beyond Bradford. We roughly host about 2 tours a week, and welcoming people from different backgrounds, different professions to come and see and learn from this experience. And the project is helping to demonstrate what an ambition public sector infrastructure can really achieve.
So obviously working from this, the points we're trying to bring across here, Bradford's one of the youngest and most diverse cities in the UK, and creating safe, accessible, legible streets is all about equity and bringing people, elevating people's lives. So we want to ensure that older residents feel confident navigating the city. We want to create spaces that make people belong in the centre area and generate that feeling of belonging. But we haven't just changed how people moved, we've changed how people work as well. We've delivered £9.8 million in social value. Local employment and apprenticeships were created from the scheme. 85% of the suppliers were small, medium enterprises. Thousands of school children received educational materials explaining the transformation of the city. And that matters because the infrastructure serves future generations, and we were very keen to push that forward. So in Bradford, the investment has restored civic pride, strengthened community confidence, and created a city centre designed for people. And we're seeing that constantly in social media posts and general national reaction to the scheme.
And finally, the Pineapple Awards recognises infrastructure that really contributes positively to place. And in Bradford, we have rebalanced streets in favour of people, delivered measurable environmental and social outcomes, and created infrastructure that supports health, culture, economic growth. And this project has not simply improved transport, it's delivered transformational change that residents can see, feel and use every day. And it's changed how Bradford works and how Bradford sees itself. Thank you.
Beautifully presented. I'm now going to invite our judges back to have their questions, but it's really amazing to see that comprehensive impact and those photos of people, which is just gorgeous to see. So Tom, perhaps you'd like to kick off this time.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you, guys. That was Yeah, that's really good. The scale and the ambition is certainly striking. One of the things that gets me is this is a brilliant collaboration story, you know, right across internally, externally, communities, businesses. How did you keep everyone on the same page when presumably there were all sorts of different ideas, opinions, priorities?
I'm very persuasive when I want to be.
I think we were very clear from the beginning. We led on the business case to begin with, and the vision that we had and that ambition, we had it right from the beginning. And it was making sure that when people joined us and worked with us, that they felt the same and they bought into that vision and they bought into the opportunity that we had. And what we didn't want to do is limit that. You know, let's design something, let's build something that, you know, we really want to do. Even if, you know, over time it goes over budget, let's look at how we can still deliver it by looking at other opportunities. And when you collaborate and you have different skill sets, you're looking for those opportunities all the time to make sure that you can deliver. But I think also, because we knew what we wanted to do, we were looking for those opportunities all the time, where we could collaborate, where we could bring additional funding in, where we could support. Also, you know, because Team Bradford at the local authority were the intelligent client, and we have that skill set as well internally, what we were able to do is we understand Bradford, we understand the site. We were able to work with the contractors, work with the designers as well, to make sure that we weren't compromising on those important things, because quite often what happens from design to delivery gets watered down, and cost implications increase with COVID and all the other things that were happening around the world. We were in a situation at one point where, especially the green infrastructure, the things that go in last are the first things that come out, because you build the concrete first. So what we didn't want to do is find ourselves in a situation where we had this ambition, we had this great scheme, but we had to then make changes. So we planned, we had regular meetings on a weekly basis. There was a lot of, you know, when we talk about collaboration, it truly is a collaborative project. I think that really worked.
So to add some context into that, we undertook, I think there was 8 complete consultations on the scheme, sending out 35,000 letters each time to residents, inviting them to come to see displays, town hall meetings, breakfast briefings, all sorts of stuff like that. We employed a specialist stakeholder engagement, complete out of context, who have been invaluable to us in developing the language and the methods of communicating with people. And also, when we say a collaboration with our partners, it literally has been. If you'd have come into the meetings, you would have thought it was one team and not an authority and contractors. And we were very, very keen to not just build a sense of place externally, but a sense of place internally for the scheme, and bring everybody together. And that has shone through.
That co-creation, that co-design.
I want to hold you there because I want to make sure our other judges get their questions in. So Claire, do you want to bring your I appreciate your enthusiasm. Claire, can I bring you in?
Thanks, Christine. And you may have been just about to answer my question, hearing the words co-design. So congratulations on such a transformation. You mentioned that Bradford has one of the most diverse and youngest populations in the UK. And just thinking about the groups that are quite often excluded from consultations, how did you make sure that their needs influence the design process so that you were truly designing for all?
So while this project was going on, we were also working on projects within our neighbourhoods, and we used that as an opportunity to engage, co-design, learn from those experiences, what people wanted, because this was about connecting the city to those neighbourhoods and vice versa, and bringing people in. And through some of the other projects, every single project that we worked on was also going to feed into this at the same way, and that's how we work in Bradford. So we also use other partners on other projects to work with us on that co-design, and going into schools, because there aren't any schools in the city centre. So we, through other projects, worked with schools, Born in Bradford. You know, all our partners were embedded and invested in this project. So we kind of did comprehensive engagement in what people wanted. How did children want to feel in this city centre, this new space? And we took some of those elements, those playful elements, for example. We couldn't create a park for play. What we could do is create a landscape that you could play in. And so we embedded those into our design to make sure that actually you could play anywhere you wanted. And it was a space that you felt that you had contributed to.
And as we've gone through the scheme and developed it, we had weekly meetings in terms of mobility planning with disabled groups and hard to reach people, young people particularly. There is a West Yorkshire mayoral mandate for designing spaces that are safe for women and girls. We looked at an awful lot of design standards, lighting standards and things like that. But even down to the small details of providing, because we've moved some bus stops out of the centre and moved them around, talking to people who might not necessarily be registered disabled, but might have limited experience or limited capability for walking. And then we looked at planting seats in certain locations around so that we could offset any change in the environment that people had been used to, so that they could move from one place to another and have resting points in there. So quite a considerable amount of time and thought was given to sort of engaging with seldom heard groups. I think it's paid off.
But also making sure that the space could be used late afternoon when it's dark, in the evenings, and that young people in particular, because we've got a new college opened, that they feel safe and that they can use a space.
Thank you.
Great. I'm going to bring you in, Devon. Hopefully we can hear you.
All good.
Yes,
Yeah.
beautiful.
Thanks both. I really like how you reframed it as an infrastructure project, not just a way of moving people through Bradford, but you mentioned very early at the beginning using it as a way of addressing some of the deep-rooted deprivation in Bradford, which is a really ambitious ask. Similar to Claire's question, through the process, how did you engage with those most deprived communities? And how confident are you looking back that those people in the most deprived communities are genuinely benefiting day to day, rather than the scheme primarily benefiting commuters, visitors, and students?
I think the proof is in the pudding. The space, the city centre has been open since last April. The feedback, the way that people use the space, we're quite privileged. We are on the 4th floor of this building. When we look out onto the park, and it still surprises us when we look out and we see people the way that they're using the space. I mean, it's literally like somebody's back garden. They really have taken ownership of it. And initially, we felt that there might be a little bit of pushback because obviously we've closed roads. I think the fact that we engaged and it was done across the district, especially the inner city donor area. I think most of our communities feel that they have contributed, that the conversations that we've had, a lot of them are from a South Asian community, for example. I've gone out and I've spoken Urdu and Punjabi to make sure that people who normally don't. I mean, one of the first questions that I ask when I'm doing consultations is, who is not in this room? Who is it that we need to make sure that we're engaging with? You only get one chance to do a project like this in your city, and you want to make sure that you take everybody with you on that journey. And that's not just the people that we work with in the council, it's actually our communities. And the feedback that we've been getting, people are very vocal on social media, if they're not happy or anything. We've been really blessed. I think, if I was to do this again, would there be any changes in the way that we've done the consultation, the engagement? Probably not. We really feel that we thought about this really carefully, and it was so important for us to make sure that everybody was part of the journey.
I think in terms of just to go on to the areas of deprivation a little bit. If you visited Bradford before the scheme and you were travelling from our main bus station or rail station to secondary sort of locations in the central area, you would have been crossing a dual carriageway that was had a high KSI on it and was regularly used as a racetrack. And it was a physical barrier between people coming into the centre and then moving around and reaching places of employment. And the scheme took that out completely. Similarly, with the rationalising of the bus routes, which some people were pretty much against to start with. But when we sort of made the case of what we wanted to do and why we wanted to do it, again, it has actually improved the transport infrastructure for people. So it's made getting around the city centre a lot easier, but also getting through it in terms of modes of transport that people who may not have a car but have got a bike, maybe using e-scooters to get to places, have now got physical spaces that they can use within the central area that are free from vehicles, and they can actually get through and access. And that was one of the key things in the scheme, was to improve the connectivity across the whole city using the central area as a hub. And I think that has had a major impact. We've seen a lot of investors now coming to us saying, we like what you've done. We want to see whether we can invest further in the city and create more jobs. We've recently had major entertainment venue open in the central area. The works that we've done have facilitated that, and that's bringing more people into the centre as well. And also, we've just been awarded Brit School, and that is on the back of the ambition that was raised out of the city centre. So that in terms of inclusion and bringing people in and generally working or improving things for the deprived areas, it's had a huge impact.
But I think also,
great. I'm sorry we have to leave it there.
We can talk for England about
it's
this.
Been
Sorry.
But thank you so much for your presentation, and judges for your questions. We have to move on to our next presentation now. And sad to be saying goodbye to Bradford, but hello to East Leeds Orbital Route. This is a project for Leeds City Council with AtkinsRéalis, Knight Architects and Balfour Beatty. And I'd like to welcome Katie Cardwell to stage. She is Associate Director of Landscape Architecture at AtkinsRéalis. Katie, hi.
Hi there, is that working? Can you hear me?
It was working perfectly. I'll leave it to you.
That's great. Thank you. Hello, everybody. My name's Katie Cardwell, and I'm here today to talk about the East Leeds Orbital Route. Just move it on. The East Leeds Orbital Route is a new 7.5 kilometre transport corridor that sits to the east of Leeds. And this project, ELAW, plays a pivotal role in shaping the future expansion of Leeds by enabling sustainable urban expansion and providing the critical infrastructure that's needed for that. It's the city's largest infrastructure project for 50 years, and it underpins the East Leeds extension, which is one of the UK's most ambitious residential growth initiatives for housing, with 5,000 new homes planned in this area. The plan on the right-hand side shows the red line is the route of the East Leeds Orbital Route, and then that hatched area in between is the future expansion of Leeds and the area that is earmarked for housing as part of the East Leeds extension. So at the beginning of the project, oh, has that disappeared? No. At the beginning of the project, the route runs entirely through Greenbelt, through open countryside, with villages being the local communities to this scheme. But the future of that will be very different, with the expansion of the city to the western side, that it will be developed right up into the boundary of this project. So because of that, an essential feature of this project was the engagement with the local communities and the co-design process that we embedded within it. The collaborative approach here ensured that the infrastructure here was to serve not only as a means of movement and transportation, but creating vital spaces for recreation and social interaction for the existing communities, but also the proposed communities and those that will come in the future. So the master plan from the project, from the outset, this was a visionary project, and it was to do things a little bit differently. So the vision was to create a country park with a road running through it. And this was very much about creating a landscape-led approach to infrastructure and creating a place for people here. So within the master plan for Elaw, was a series of destinations that people could visit as part of this route. So a series of pocket parks, a main country park that sat in kind of in the heart of the scheme, and 5 signature bridges were designed to cross the route and provide. These were core 10 bridges, but they provided landmarks along the route, but also to provide that vital east-west connection and allow those key connections across the route for both people, but also for cyclists and equestrian users as well. There was kind of a comprehensive sustainable drainage strategy as well that sat alongside this scheme to really work hard for the scheme. And underpinning it was a network of recreational routes and active travel routes across the scheme. There's also a scheduled ancient monument that sits at the southern end of the scheme, and it was really important how the scheme responded to this and recognised it as part of the design. So the vision for this project was to create a country park with a road running through it, and this was reflected with the land take. 75% of the land was associated with landscape and only 25% associated with the infrastructure and the road itself. And these are some of the outcomes that the project has delivered. There's 12 hectares of new wildflower meadows associated with this project, and that's really to enhance biodiversity. It's to create places that support pollinators and provide that seasonal interest. This is an attractive place for people to visit and use throughout the year, and that it changes with the seasons as well and changes throughout the year. There were extensive amenity grasslands that were created, and these were for informal recreation, visual continuity, to really integrate this new scheme within its parent landscape. This was a large infrastructure project, and it needed to, over time, seamlessly blend into this landscape and look like it was born from it. So kind of the careful planning of the landscape and to integrate it into its wider context was really important, while at the same time creating usable spaces and really bringing people into this scheme and encouraging active participation. Over 35,000 trees were planted as part of Elaw, and this was really to embed it in its parent landscape, extend those woodland corridors, enhance those, create buffer zones, create screening for the road, and create microclimates. So it really worked as a biodiverse landscape. And also, as we had 75% of the land was associated with landscape, it needed to work hard for the scheme as well, and it needed to deliver benefits. So as part of this, it was the drainage strategy and to really hold as much water as possible on site and slow the flow and really reduce kind of the flow into the system. So this was underpinned by several attenuation basins and also swales that ran the length of the scheme. And these served both functionally in terms of drainage, but also created really rich aquatic habitats and also created places for people to interact with these, with things like the little decking platforms and places for people to interact with the water bodies on the site. And this project very much was co-designed with the local community. There was extensive in-person engagement that was carried out with numerous face-to-face events throughout the project to communicate the ambitions for the project, to gather feedback on what local residents wanted to see as part of this project, to share updates as we progressed throughout the scheme, and really help to shape the project collaboratively, and that was really important for its success, that people were listened to, particularly those local communities sitting on the fringe of this project, and that they felt they were listened to and fed into the design process. An online 3D model of the scheme was created as well, which really helped visualize how the scheme would be. And this had existing places, existing landmarks all modeled into it. So we found that really helpful in improving residents' understanding of the scheme, what was proposed, and help them to navigate the scheme, particularly where they could see where they lived and how it worked for them. We worked extensively with local schools on the project as well, through engagement activities. For example, there were several tree planting events on the scheme, which were really successful, enjoyable events, and they really helped involve the younger generation and bring them into this project. And really one element where the community really helped to inform this project was through the active travel routes. The walking, cycling and equestrian routes were really designed around the needs of the local community. What was really used well at the moment, how we could connect better into those, extend the routes through existing paths and make sure those destinations really were connected and enhanced. And these are just some images here throughout the construction and post-completion of the scheme, that really this has been designed as a space where people, place and nature can really thrive. It's more than just about kind of creating the infrastructure. This is about creating a place for people that really kind of encourages active, healthy lifestyles and encourages people to get out into nature, into the landscape and use it. And it's really worked hard to provide those facilities for people to get out and enjoy this scheme. I mentioned on the master plan that it passed through a scheduled ancient monument, and the scheme passes through the site of Barnbow, which is both of local and national importance. Barnbow was National Filling Station number 1 in the First World War, where shells were filled with explosives. It was a big outfit, a big operation, and at its peak, the workforce was 16,000, and 93% of these were women. But unfortunately for the women that worked at Barnbow, their exposure to these chemicals and filling the shells had the effect of turning their skin yellow. So they were known locally as the Canary Lasses, with the canary being the yellow bird. And so we really looked hard at how the ELAW scheme could recognise and honour their legacy. And it was decided this would be through the landscape and through a really symbolic and sensitive landscape intervention. So just within the red line boundary of Barnbow, the planting palette has a striking yellow tones. So the wildflower meadow in this area is predominantly yellow tones. The central reservation is packed with spring bulbs that are of yellow colour. There's an avenue of ginkgo trees that's gone in, so it was really striking in autumn. And even in winter, the stems of the yellow dogwood shine through. So throughout the year, there is this reflection and this tapestry of yellow within the red line boundary. In terms of the impact of the project, similar to the scheme beforehand, with Balfour Beatty we worked, and they've produced a series of children's books called Cones and Building Bridges. And the first one was actually based on the East Leeds orbital route, and it illustrates 2 children, all the various jobs that are involved with creating a project like this and what goes into them, and aims to really inspire children aged 6 to 10 for a career in the construction industry and all the exciting opportunities that come with delivering a project of this scale. And it really highlights the importance of having a diverse and inclusive workforce. And 2,500 copies of this book were distributed to the local schools to ELAW across Leeds. And the scheme has already been recognised for various different levels, both in terms of its construction through Project of the Year. It's been recognised shortlisted by the Landscape Institute for Public Health and Wellbeing. And it's also been recognised for its equestrian use by the British Horse Society. And in terms of the environmental performance of the project, I think I won't go through kind of all the details of this now, but what's really rewarding about this project is that these elements, the green infrastructure, the active travel, the materials, these were embedded within the project from the outset and have been retained right through the design phase, the construction phase, and this will only increase as the scheme develops and the landscape matures. And ELAW has been recognised as Leeds won Green City Council of the Year in 2025, and ELAW was highlighted as part of this for its green infrastructure provision and demonstrating its climate alignment as well. So it's really rewarding to see that a lot of those ambitions that were there from the outset have followed right through on this project to completion, which is just wonderful to see. And just to summarise with kind of a completed scheme photo and a quote from the client, that ELAW is a project like no other, where people, place, nature and active travel were at the heart of the design. Thank you, and happy to take any questions.
Thank you so much for that presentation, and what an amazing story. I didn't know about the Canary women who worked in those factories. So I'm going to invite our judges to put their questions to you. So Devin, would you like to go first, assuming you have your microphone?
Yeah, I think I might have cracked it now.
It's all good.
Thanks, Katie. Really good presentation. The green infrastructure there is really impressive, and the delivery story is quite remarkable, seeing quite a big, large infrastructure project delivered on time. My question is sort of the other side of that. A new road, by its very nature, enhances car connectivity and promotes trips in cars that might not have necessarily happened. So if you could just maybe expand on that active travel story and how you linked up to sort of new cycling and walking routes, and how the active travel there will exist, the existing communities around it, rather than just the new homes and communities that will be built as part of the East Leeds extension.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. I think it's very well connected, this project, to lots of other initiatives, and kind of plugs into everything that you spoke about there, really. So part of it is taking traffic out of the city to create this kind of orbital route and have another option, so taking the congestion out of the city centre. It's also part of the long-term strategic goals for Leeds, and this connects very closely with employment hubs. So where kind of likely employment is going to grow, it's already there. And that's where these active travel routes really come in, that they're kind of really well connected to some of these employment hubs. The way it's been designed is one side of the route, the western side, is the active travel commuter route. So this is designed from getting to A to B and connects those routes as quick as possible. It's lit when users are using that route. It's a lit side of the route, and that is segregated active travel route. The eastern side, on the sort of more rural fringe, that's more about the kind of recreational use of the scheme. That's the informal network of active travel routes, so it's the cycle routes. And this is a large equestrian use area as well. So one of the key elements and what came out of the consultation was plugging into those bridle ways. And that's been one of the real successes of the scheme, actually, of how well used those routes are. And it also connects into all the cycling infrastructure that's already there. So it's kind of at both ends of the scheme. It plugs into kind of the cycling superhighway and what's already there, and provides an extension to that. So it's not in isolation, this scheme. It kind of plugs in at the sides and kind of at both ends as well, to kind of the wider aspirations of how this can benefit the city.
Thank you.
Claire, can I bring you in now?
Yes, thanks very much, Katie. It was really interesting to hear more about this scheme being conceived as a road within a country park and the landscape-led design principles. Just thinking about the social angle, I wondered if you could tell me how the scheme has changed people's lives from a health and well-being perspective.
I think this is going to evolve over time as well. The picture that we've got now will change going forward, because a lot of the provision that we've put in here is for the future, and there's a lot of communities going to arrive adjacent to this scheme going forward. But also it's very important that it benefits the communities that are there now, and those are two very different types of community, because the density will be very different. They're like rural villages that we're connecting into currently, and for those people, a lot of their sort of aspirations was have better walking routes from their homes, because they already had them, but they could go further. And there is a high equestrian usage, and it was like having better routes locally that they could use. And so that's been one of the real successes. And we have put in outdoor gyms, trim trails, play equipment, that there's lots of little mini destinations along this route, and they're really well used. And the local communities that are there now, those villages, really helped shape where they went as well. And they kind of had groups of children that didn't really have any provision. And one of the groups that they really wanted to create something for was sort of teenagers, and having kind of an area of the scheme where they felt there was provision of play equipment that wasn't aimed at really young children, that this would bring kind of older children out to be able to enjoy the scheme. So the outdoor gyms that have gone in, and some of the equipment is targeted around kind of the slightly older children, where we really want to promote kind of these active lifestyles and getting people outdoors and using the scheme.
Thank you.
Tom.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you again, Katie, and congratulations too. It's a hugely impressive piece of work. On the consultation and the engagement work that you've shared, what were some of the biggest objections that you received? How did you handle them? How did you incorporate those? I guess you weren't without some challenging feedback along the way.
a project of this scale, this nature, it's never going to be without its challenges, especially when it's kind of on people's doorstep, and it's massive, significant change, isn't it? And I think some of the challenges that we received is what's in it for those local communities. They could see some of the benefits for kind of these housings that's coming in the future, but really, how is it going to benefit them was the big question. They could only see the negative possibly from the outset of having this huge road where they're in open countryside at the moment, and kind of the city is expanding in their direction, and that changes their outlook completely. And I think we were very mindful of that and went into this as a whole design team coordinated with that in mind, that we must listen to those communities and we must look what we can offer to them as part of this project to really make sure it does provide tangible, real benefits that will be delivered. They're not just open promises, that they will be delivered as part of this scheme. And that was through the external provision through the landscape, and making sure also that we did provide screening where it was necessary, where we did need to enhance woodland settings, that was done. So a lot of that was done through the landscape. Some of the objections we got was, we were really ambitious with kind of the play provision that was going in and the active kind of outdoor gyms, and there was some opposition that will this just be vandalized, because a lot of it isn't going to have kind of that natural overlooking that sort of the parkland often has, particularly as it's going in before the housing, that a lot of this these elements were going in first, and was that going to be a problem? That and it just proves that you do sometimes have to take the risk, because this went in, the project was ambitious, and there's been no vandalism to the play equipment, to those equipments that have gone in, and it has been well received and well used. But you will always get those worries, those concerns, but it is important as a whole project team, the promises are real, I think, as well, and what you can deliver, and that you listen and try to deliver benefits. And I think, yeah, the user groups where it was most difficult were probably these existing villages, and we hopefully have delivered benefit, and I think they are enjoying using the scheme.
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much for your answers, Katie, and your presentation, and judges for your questions. It's now
Thank
time
you.
for us to Thank you. It's now time for us to take a quick break. We're going to close this first half of infrastructure and be back in 10 minutes time for the second half of the infrastructure presentation. So get yourself a cup of tea, and we'll see you back here in 10. And thanks for watching the Pineapples. Hello and welcome back to the Festival of Pineapples. This is the live judging of the Pineapples Awards for Place. My name is Christine Murray, co-founder of the Pineapples, founding editor-in-chief of the developer and director of the Festival of Place. And this is the second half of the judging of the category for infrastructure. This category of Pineapple seeks to recognize projects that enhance connectivity, make a positive social and environmental impact, and contribute positively to people's lives and to the wider place. We have some more finalists to share with you. A reminder, each of the presenter has 10 minutes to pitch the judges, who then have 10 minutes for questions. And after hearing all the presentations, the judges will deliberate in private to decide the winner, who will be announced on the 22nd of April at Trinity Buoy Wharf in London, and tickets to the party are on sale at thepineapples.co.uk. So feel free to use the emoji button to cheer on the presenters or share your comments in the chat, but the judges are the only ones who ask the questions at the Pineapples. And I want to welcome our fabulous judges to this category. Claire Heffer-Davies is Senior Development Manager for the Crown Estate, leading the delivery of public realm developments across the London estate, including the interim Regent Street Public Realm project and the ongoing design development of the permanent Regent Street, Haymarket and Piccadilly Circus Public Realm scheme in partnership with Westminster City Council. We also have with us Tom Beardmore, Social Value and Community Engagement Director at Mount Anvil. Tom's responsible for leading Mount Anvil's social value and community engagement work across the estate regeneration projects in central London, working directly with JV partners, community and political stakeholders, and most importantly, residents. At the heart of this work is Tom's passion for creating innovative public-private third sector partnerships and funding models that unlock resources and deliver impact in London communities over the long term. And finally, Devon Epta is Head of Area Regeneration at the London Borough of Hounslow. Having led major regeneration programs in the Midlands before joining Hounslow, Devon works with public and private partners to turn underperforming sites into places people want to spend time in and not just pass through. Devon is particularly interested in design, quality, public value, and proving that the public sector can lead with purpose, pace, and imagination. So it's now time to hear from our next project, and that is Camden High Street Trial Pedestrianisation in the London Borough of Camden for the London Borough of Camden. And this is presented by Carl Brierley from the Safe and Healthy Streets team, and Safar Fatema Muhammad Ali, Principal Regeneration Officer from the London Borough of Camden, both. So welcome.
Thank you, Christine. Can you hear me and see my screen okay?
I can hear you and see your screen. And Carl, are you there too?
I am, yes. Thank you very much.
Perfect.
Great. Okay, over to you.
Thank you. Everyone remembers their first visit to Camden Town, and those visits feature the vibrant and bustling Camden High Street, famous for its chaotic energy, its rebellious nature, and punk atmosphere. It's significant on a local and international scale. It's one of London's most visited destinations. We took a collaborative approach across multiple teams and partners to drive forward this project that aims to make Camden High Street safer, more inclusive, and more sustainable. Camden High Street is the focal point of a 1960s car-centric approach to town centres. A one-way gyratory system was created, very efficient for motor vehicles and provides key road connections for the wider Camden highway system. This was designed at a time when Camden High Street was not the destination it is today and didn't have the people-focused approach that Camden wants from its streets. Even back in 1995, people were highlighting the car-centric nature of Camden High Street was an outdated way of thinking about our road infrastructure. The Reclaim the Streets protests, which intentionally crashed cars on Camden High Street, closed the street and started a protest party. At peak times, high levels of motor traffic led to conflict with pedestrians overspilling from the pavement, with disabled people feeling particularly uncomfortable in navigating the high street. Bad air quality also negatively affected visitors' experience. The public realm has suffered. There's been a lack of dwell space due to the cluttered pavements, large crowds, and a steady stream of traffic. It's a hotspot for antisocial behaviour, and the retail offer caters heavily to tourists, with residents feeling no connection to their local high street. So what did we do?
In 2019, we announced plans to pedestrianise Camden High Street, and as part of this, we undertook early engagement. This engagement showed that a majority of people did not think the High Street was a pleasant place to spend time. During the pandemic, we focused on infrastructure changes in the wider area, and in 2023, we came back to targeted engagement on Camden High Street. We refined our proposals, and in July 2024, we launched a public consultation. This consultation was focused on two key areas in which we wanted to gauge public opinion. The first was on the infrastructure and how we planned to trial a pedestrianisation of the High Street. And this pedestrianisation was comprised of the following: a motor traffic free space on Camden High Street between Jamestown Road and Holy Crescent, safe for emergency service vehicles and refuse vehicle access. Loading would be facilitated by new loading bays on the surrounding streets. General traffic and buses would be diverted around the pedestrianised space via Kenterstown Road and Holy Crescent. This required a lot of liaison and traffic modelling with TfL, who were also the project funders, to ensure that this change could be made without adversely affecting the wider network. Space for outdoor dining and seating was also included on Jamestown Road, which is outside the pedestrianised zone, but hosts a large number of food and beverage-based businesses. We utilised the consultation as an opportunity to listen to what people would like from a pedestrianised High Street. We undertook a series of engagement events on the High Street, where we had 975 conversations, and we had over 1,000 insights recorded. 71% of people who responded agreed with the proposals to trial the pedestrianised High Street, and we gained valuable feedback from those conversations on what people would like to see from a pedestrianised High Street, with key themes emerging around music, green spaces, seating, and events that reflected Camden's culture. In March 2024, a decision was made to move forward with the trial pedestrianisation, with a test and learn approach adopted for activating the pedestrianised space. And as part of this trial approach, we committed to monitoring both the impact of the infrastructure and the activation of the space. Shortly after the decision was made, construction started on the scheme, and we delivered footway build-outs on Jamestown Road and issued tables and chairs licenses to the cafes and restaurants. Overnight, on Thursday, the 1st of March 2025, we coned off Camden High Street, we dropped the barriers into place, and we unveiled the new traffic signs for the vehicles to follow. This launched the start of the trial, nearly 30 years to the day from the Reclaim the Streets protest party, finally delivering on their ambition to reclaim Camden High Street for people. On the first Saturday of the trial, we had over 90,000 people visit, a 28% increase on the Saturday before. And what was amazing about that first weekend was everyone just took to the space that was created immediately. In response to concerns around safety on the high street, we established a physical presence on the high street via our friendly community safety officers. This team acts as a first point of contact for people visiting the high street, and their high visibility also serves to discourage antisocial behaviour. As the graph shows, there's been a downward trajectory of reported crimes on the high street and the surrounding streets since the trial launched. Air quality within the pedestrianised area has also improved. Average nitrous dioxide levels in the pedestrian area are substantially lower than the 2024 baselines, and there have not been any knock-on effects in the surrounding streets. Air quality there remains similar to the baselines. So what did the pedestrianisation enable?
Moving traffic off the street turned it into a canvas for opportunity, and in some cases, literally a canvas. The street was brought to life by professional artists and also by school children. We collaborated with a local arts charity to bring elements of wayfinding and play into the spill-out area in front of the station and give residents and students the opportunity to make their mark on their high street. The mural drew people out of the station and into the pedestrianised space to help disperse crowds, and it featured a hopscotch that reflected the organic way that the street had started to be used. Creating a nicer environment on the high street is one of the core benefits of pedestrianisation. Without traffic, we were able to create a new square in the heart of the pedestrianised space. We partnered with the London Festival of Architecture and with Edgy Collective to deliver Camden Substratum, a bold, inclusive and community-driven space to serve the people who live, work and visit there. This was developed in response to feedback from the public consultation and delivered through local collaboration with locally sourced materials. The design introduces inclusive and social seating, greenery, and sustainable materials to create a welcoming and accessible public space. The planting is maintained by 2 funded community gardeners who are facilitated by the nearby community centre. This square became the host of community-run events such as the Wassail, which is a folk tradition to bring people together and encourage a good harvest. As well as some of the highlights of the cultural programme, this Drawing with Light event, a spectacular parade through the square that celebrated Black History Month and activated the street at night. The Herds, a procession of animals down the length of the high street, educated people on the dangers of climate change to wildlife in a dynamic way that captured the street's attention. Young, up-and-coming local talent got a place to shine because of the pedestrianisation, with a nod to Camden's history of music and fashion. Camden as a Catwalk, a sustainable fashion show, made excellent use of the linear layout of a high street and showcased creations by local students and designers during London Fashion Week. The Summer Sounds event provided a stage for young artists to perform to lively crowds, and DJ AG, who was Londoner of the Year in 2025, performs regularly on the high street, giving up-and-coming names in music an international platform right from Camden High Street. All these events have been free. They've been marketed to and attended by residents, giving them the chance to bring back their connection to their local high street. So what's next?
So over the coming months, we are continuing with our test and learn approach, and we are continually collecting data in relation to traffic volumes, pedestrian volumes, spend data and air quality. We are continuing to engage with people, listening to their feedbacks and ideas, and to this end, we are looking at expanding the pedestrianised area to Holy Road, which would further increase the size of the pedestrianised space. This would be phase 2 of the scheme and would be more complex than the trial, which is now considered phase 1. This summer, we plan to consult both on making phase 1, the trial, permanent, and also about proceeding with phase 2. If these proposals were approved, we would continue with our test and learn approach as we carefully work with local people and partners to deliver a Camden High Street that is safer, more sustainable and more inclusive. Thank you very much for the opportunity to talk about this project, and we welcome your questions.
Thanks so much for your presentation, and really amazing to see that transformation, how quickly too that these trials can be implemented and start making friends. Our judges are joining me. I know they're going to want to ask some questions. Claire, can I bring you in first?
Yes, thank you, Christine, and great to hear your presentation. Lovely to see Camden as a catwalk and bringing the community together to really show the benefits of the scheme. Just touching on your final point, Carl, it'd be interesting to hear a little bit more about the longer term plans for permanent changes. Would you be able to expand a little bit more on what that might look like, or the journey to get there?
Yeah, very happily. So essentially this phase one was relatively easy to deliver within the highway system. We needed to make a small tweak to the general traffic and buses going around the pedestrianised space. But as we spoke about in the opening slides, we have a one-way gyratory, which means if we are going to expand that pedestrianised space up to the next road, we will need to make a rather large A road one-way, from one-way to two-way. So the next steps on that are, we have a proof of concept here that it is working, it's delivering for local people, it's safe, there's air quality, and the traffic impacts haven't been felt in the wider network. So we're using that as a platform for discussions with partners, strategic partners, and Transport for London about how we can move forward with a more ambitious scheme and further change the gyratory into a more people-focused place.
Thanks very much.
Tom, can I bring you in?
Thanks, Christine, and yeah, wonderful presentation, Carl. Sahar, that was brilliant. On the theme of safety, you had one slide there around some of the initiatives you've introduced. I was wondering specifically around nighttime safety, thinking women and girls in particular. Is there anything unique in the approach, or anything specifically that you'd thought of to kind of help people feel safe in the local area?
I can answer that one, Sahar, and you can add anything if you want. Yeah, as was mentioned at the very start of the presentation, it's a multifaceted approach. You know, this isn't just a transport project, it's a project that we're trying to bring lots of teams in the council into. And women's safety at night, general safety at night, is one of the key priorities. We are working with our community safety team, and on weekend nights, so from Thursday through to Saturday, from 9 p.m. until 2 a.m. in the morning, we park a bus up right in the middle of the pedestrianised space. And that is a space people can come in, get some water, recharge their phones, get warm, and that's highly visible right in the middle of the pedestrianised space. And it's proving very, very successful. We are looking at expanding that to a physical space, I believe, on Holy Road, in addition to the bus. But yeah, tackling nighttime safety is definitely something we want to do. One of the issues with Camden High Street is a lot of the businesses close down at 6, 7 p.m. And as Sahar talked about, we've done a series of nighttime events like the Camden as a Catwalk and the Drawing with Light. I don't want to step on your toes, Sahar, so maybe you can run those. But they were nighttime events is specifically to address that issue.
Yeah, I'd also say we're constantly reviewing the feedback that we're getting through our engagement on this topic in particular. We're engaging with residents on how we can work to a solution on this, and a very clear part of our next steps and our approach, if the scheme is expanded, is to look into things like lighting, public realm, topics like that, and how we can sort of work towards improving those to improve the feeling of safety on the high street.
Devin, I welcome you to join the conversation.
Thanks both. I do remember my first trip to Camden High Street, so that was very true. One thing I'd be really interested in understanding is whether the trials had any adverse impacts on the surrounding street network. So are you seeing displacement into nearby residential streets, and is that creating any problems for them communities, or are you actually seeing people changing their behaviour and switching to different modes of transport rather than maybe just rerouting? And if so, how are you monitoring that wider impact on what's happening on the other streets?
Thank you very much. A really, really pertinent question. We launched the idea for the scheme in 2019. And when we did that early engagement referenced in the presentation, local residents came to us very strongly that they were concerned exactly about that, Devin, that their local streets would form the diversion route for the traffic. So in the interim, the changes I mentioned in the COVID period that we did, we introduced a low traffic neighbourhood style scheme on the surrounding residential streets, both to the west and the north, where those concerns were raised. So we tackled those issues. We used the opportunity of the delay in moving forward with the main scheme to tackle those issues first. So the traffic impacts that we're seeing now from the data we have, the traffic is sticking to that A road network like it's supposed to do. So we feel it's kind of, we were able to tackle the issues that we had in the original engagement and move forward with a much more viable scheme in 2024 when we consulted on it.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think I'll also just add to that we're monitoring data quite closely on this. So we have air quality sensors that we're monitoring both on the high street itself and on the surrounding streets. Equally, we're looking at the levels of traffic on surrounding streets and comparing it to the baseline before pedestrianisation to understand what impact it's having. And so far, things are looking quite positive. We're not seeing an adverse effect on the surrounding streets.
Great, super interesting to hear about your collection of data and how things are changing, and in terms of, I love the idea of this bus parked up on the street where you can charge your phone and get some water and get warmed up. It's a really great idea to kind of ensure that there's, you know, eyes on the street and a presence there. Thank you both for your time, and judges for your presentation and your questions. And it's now time to travel again to our next project. And that is the Lower Lee Crossing. We're going to the London Borough of Newham for Transport for London and the London Borough of Newham with Project Centre and TKJV as principal contractor. And this project is going to be presented by Daryl Rice, who is Director of Civil and Infrastructure at the Project Centre. So hi, Daryl.
Hello, good afternoon. I'm here to present on Lower Lee Crossing from roads to routes, a scheme located, as you've quite rightly mentioned, in Newham in East London and designed by Project Centre. Lower Lee Crossing links Canning Town and Canary Wharf, and more widely links the boroughs of Newham and Tower Hamlets. Newham has experienced rapid population growth, making it one of London's fastest growing and youngest boroughs. Recent estimates for 24-25 place the population closer to 374,000 to 382,000, with a 20% increase over the last decade, and projections expecting further growth. The borough has one of the youngest age profiles in London, with a median age of around 31, and over 70% of residents from Black, Asian and ethnically diverse communities. The population is expected to grow by another 19% by 2030, with significant increases in both young professionals and those aged over 70. Newham's growth is part of a broader trend in East London, with neighbouring Tower Hamlets and Barking and Dagenham experiencing even higher percentage increases. Newham has seen increasing demand for safe and convenient walking and cycling routes due to the development in areas like Stratford, the Royal Docks, and in part due to the legacy of the 2012 Olympics, which have driven this rapid expansion. As such, cheaper, easier and safer transport along this key route for residents, workers and visitors moving across East London was essential. All this considered, the corridor that we did have when we started with did not work well for people and was previously shaped primarily around vehicle movement. Vehicle speeds dominated the character of the space. There was limited and fragmented pedestrian cycle provision. Even crossing the slip roads felt unsafe and inconvenient. Sustainable travel was discouraged just by the existing layout, both in appearance and function. The route acted more as a barrier between the neighbourhoods rather than a connection. So what did we aim to deliver? The scheme therefore sought to provide targeted improvements along the corridor, which were simple yet effective. Wider footways and improved cycle space, new and upgraded pedestrian crossings, traffic calming by a reduction in vehicle speed, as well as other physical measures, removal of clutter and a refreshing of the landscape, making for a clearer arrangement of movement for all users. All this done whilst also including improvements to the bridge structure, the drainage, and the visibility of the space. What we didn't want to do was just put something in and hope for the best. The early stages of the scheme sought opinion and change to suit safe preferences, putting everyday users first. Safer conditions for people walking and cycling via inclusive design that supported users of all abilities, checking in with groups such as Newham cyclists along the way, deliberately including slower, more predictable vehicle movements, clear and legible routes and crossings, and ending in a design that hopefully supported future growth and change. Putting it bluntly, we wanted the change to actually help people that it would affect. So what impact did we actually achieve? The impact of these changes is a safer and more welcoming space. It improved confidence for the people walking and cycling throughout, and much better crossing opportunities for children, older people and disabled users. A much calmer and more comfortable and inviting street environment that actually encouraged people to walk through this area of East London that previously they wouldn't have thought of doing. A public space that feels easier to use on a daily basis and more enjoyable to be a part of. These choices we made in terms of simple materials, recyclable materials, and an overall simpler palette, more in keeping with the space, we hope will also support healthier travel options. The reduction in vehicle speeds I hope to contribute to lower emissions, and in time, improvements to air quality and noise conditions will have other benefits. The scheme will hopefully also support local and regional transport and climate objectives and promotes a reinforced positive resident feeling towards their space, their neighbourhood, and towards active travel in general. Looking at the before and after, early results and monitoring for the area at this time, as the scheme has only recently been completed, we're cautious about drawing long-term conclusions at this stage. What early monitoring does show is a clear reduction in vehicle speeds along the corridor and improved visibility and priority at crossing points. We're also seeing early signs of increased walking and cycling activity alongside positive feedback, which pale in comparison to the earlier comments, which were seen as a lipstick on a pig initially from the feedback we got from residents. They now report feeling safer and more confident using the route, and formal monitoring of air quality and travel patterns is ongoing, but the immediate change in user behaviour and perception is already evident. The scheme was an advocate for working collaboratively, commissioned by Transport for London, who also engaged various user groups from all different backgrounds and resources, delivered with the London Borough of Newham, who actually agreed to the turnover of their own asset to this as part of this scheme, and delivered in part as an inclusive measure with Cycleway 3, which runs through Tower Hamlets next door, with Project Centre as the principal designer and TKJV as the principal contractor. Engagement with local residents was thorough. Collaboration with disability groups, cycling groups and businesses was essential to make sure that this key route maintained access for all users during the works and through a phased construction programme. This collaborative and shared approach enabled us to deliver the scheme ahead of schedule, but also ahead of the neighbouring Silvertown Tunnel opening, which was a key milestone. We see the scheme as having had a positive contribution to urban life. A safer and more balanced space was provided, and we provided better connections for local communities who were previously, in some places, scared to use this route. Acting as a support for healthier and more sustainable travel in future, we've provided infrastructure that responds to change and growth and should last for many years to come. Lower Lee Crossing shows how relatively modest interventions can make a meaningful difference to everyday urban life. Thank you for your time.
It's really great to hear about that community feedback and the lipstick on a pig being transformed into something a bit more meaningful. Claire, would you like to go first with your question?
Yes, and that was really well presented, Daryl. And I think this might be a tricky one to pinpoint, but this category, we're testing how a project has contributed positively to people's lives. You gave a number of examples, but I think I wanted to hear if there was one element that really stands out, one way that the project most strongly contributes to people's lives?
I think a large portion of what we tried to do was, like I said, try to provide something that would actually stick and that people would feel wasn't just us spending money in collaboration alongside. One of the early comments we got was that because we were doing the works to the Silvertown Tunnel, that this was just seen as something that would paper over the fact that we weren't really spending enough money in an urban environment that really could do with lots of other provision. I think one of the early things that we've seen is school buses now go down this route, and by school buses, the traditional school bus, as in troops of younger children walking to and from different places of local attraction. This was an area where previously there were things that we found, which I can't go into for certain detail. There are things that we found along that route that contributed to it being an overall unpopular route, and in some places very unsafe. But now it's seen as something that, whether you walk, cycle, or even drive in some respects, it is much more of an inviting space that people use every day and are happy to do so.
Fantastic, thank you.
Quite an amazing thing that the walking school buses have redirected onto it. What a nice testimonial. Devin, can I bring you in?
Thanks, Daryl. Really good presentation. Different question, but I know the Lower Lee Valley has a sort of ambitious plans for new bridges and other active travel connections in the area. Was there the opportunity to have a look at how this scheme plugged into that wider network?
Yes, there was an opportunity early on to look at that. We were hoping to be able to explore even larger areas of not just this route, but even increased routes around. We were, as I mentioned, though, constrained by the amount of time leading up to the Silvertown Tunnel opening. One of the things that we were mindful of is the fact that obviously this route leads directly off of the Silvertown Tunnel, and in order to make sure that the provision was there for cycling and walking, we had to make sure that all those works were off of the network by the opening of that tunnel, because to have done it thereafter would have been delaying the scheme by about 2 years. So we were limited by the timeline that was presented to us.
Tom, I'm going to bring you in.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you, Christine, and thanks, Daryl. Yeah, great to hear the work that's been going on. You mentioned around community engagement and how that shaped the overall project. Disability groups and businesses in particular in your entry, which is great to see. Can you just bring that to life a little for us, perhaps? Like, what did that look like? What did you find, and how did that directly, I guess, impact what went on to be delivered?
Sure. We had a few workshops, whether it be what we like to call post-it note workshops, drop-ins, drop-in sessions as well around. We also poster boarded for a lot of the local businesses, as well as the businesses that cover the network that runs underneath the crossing as well, because in order to make sure that the works wouldn't affect them, in order to make sure that all of the user groups felt that they were being included, we took some of the more aggressive commentary from those user groups, and we tried to make sure that the route that we ended up with, we wanted to keep it simple. We wanted to make sure that it was something that could come off effectively, but we did that so through, I think, 3 or 4 different workshops with different user groups and different ages of people, and we also canvassed some of the local schools as well, not only to Tower Hamlets but also to Newham, to make sure that they would feel comfortable with some of the visualizations that we put across of what the scheme could potentially look like in the end, just to make sure that we kind of factored in everybody's commentary and all his thoughts and feelings.
Great. Well, thank you, judges, for your questions, and Daryl for your presentation. It was really good to learn more about this project.
Thank you.
So this actually concludes our run of presentations for this time. The judges are now going to retire with me to make their deliberations, but this just leaves me to thank all of our presenters and the judges for their questions and you for tuning in. That's all from us at the Pineapples. I believe the other sessions are concluding today in a few moments time as well. But if you want to watch back everything or anything that went before, you can use the schedule button up above. Everything has been recorded and is available to watch on demand using your usual link. And Spread the Word will be keeping it open. So if there's something you've seen that you think someone else should watch, you invite them to come back to the Pineapples. Meanwhile, you'll await the decision on the 22nd of April, and that's goodbye for me for now. So thank you very much for tuning in, and see you soon. So judges, if you just want to take a 5